Hello, everyone, and welcome to Journey to Success Radio, a show featuring people and companies who are making a positive contribution to the world. This show will help you learn how to apply success principles in every area of your life so that you can make the most out of your skills and talents and accomplish more of your goals. To find out more about the show, please visit www.journeytosuccessradio.com.
Yes, hello everyone, and welcome to Journey to Success Radio. My name is Peter Goral, Vice President of Business Development and Client Relations for TechBlocks, a company designed to help small, medium, and enterprise companies optimize their business in the digital world. A great example of the kind of work we do is the development of self-serve portals that empower our clients' customers by giving them online access to content and information they'd ordinarily have to dig deeper for through traditional channels of inquiry and call centers. My very special guest today is Jim Moss, co-founder and CEO of Plasticity Labs in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. You know, it's truly amazing how perspective can change everything. An ex-Laurier student and entrepreneur, Jim Moss learned this invaluable lesson back in 2009. One morning, Jim woke up unable to use his lower limbs due to a mysterious neuromuscular disease, quickly ending his professional lacrosse career. You can only imagine how challenging this would be for your average Joe, let alone a man who has played for Canada's national field and indoor lacrosse team for many years. Some say that everything happens for a reason. Although Jim was not able to return to his original level of physicality, this turning point was the start of something new. The Smile Epidemic, which then morphed into Plasticity Labs, based in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Peter.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Jim, I've given a tease, obviously, about, who you are and how you came about. But there's likely no one who can give your story the justice it deserves. Perhaps you'd tell the audience about your personal journey toward becoming an entrepreneur and how gratitude played a part in your personal health.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's funny. I think entrepreneurs are usually entrepreneurs for a long time before they find their path towards what they're going to be known for. I actually owned a hot dog cart back when I was 16, and I used to take it to the hockey arena, and then I would play junior hockey and then rush out and have a hot dog cart in the parking lot so that I could earn some money so I didn't have to
Impressive.
have a job. Yeah. But yeah, so I grew up in Ontario, here in Southern Ontario, playing hockey and lacrosse, as a lot of kids do in Canada, and played all the way up, and then found my way into the professional ranks of hockey and then into lacrosse. And played, as you mentioned, for Team Canada in both hockey and lacrosse. So very fortunate that way. It's a lot of work and it was a lot of sacrifice, but when you get there, you really do feel fortunate for the chance to do what you love and get paid for it. And then, to put on your national team's jersey is a really great moment as well.
It's brilliant.
Stand there, hear the national anthem and be wearing the jersey. But after about 10 years of playing professional lacrosse, my wife and I we lived in Northern California in San Jose, and we had just moved into a new condominium, and we had an 18-month-old son, and we had my wife was pregnant, 7.5 months pregnant with our second baby. Oh, wow. And all of our family was back here in Ontario, so we had our hands full anyways.
I guess.
We had just moved into this new condominium, and I was actually kind of done the heavy lifting and resting on the couch, and like you said, I woke up that morning and I got up off the couch and I tried to go to the bathroom and I couldn't really feel my feet or my hands, and I ended up falling on my face. Long story short, I ended up in the hospital that night and they told me that I had this rare neuromuscular autoimmune disease and that my immune system was eating holes in my nervous system and that it was going to take about 6 months or a year to relearn how to walk.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Literally 2 days before that, I was about 31 at the time, and I didn't work out in the gym the way that I did when I was 18 or 20 years old. To stay in shape and get ready for the season, I would run up the mountains in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And literally just 2 days before that, I had run a 40-minute uphill run up in the mountains, and then here I am, 2 days later, and I can't even walk myself to the bathroom.
Oh, wow.
So the way that the story kind of goes, the TSN turning point of this whole thing was about the third day in the hospital, and I would buzz the buzzer, and the nurse would come in and help me to get to the bathroom so I could go for a pee. And it was about 10 feet away, and it took about 10 minutes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I was still too stubborn, to pee in a cup. So I would keep buzzing them and bugging them to come in and help me get to the bathroom. So about halfway there, she would, we would stop, and she'd have a stool there for me, and we'd have a rest. And the nurse this one day said, you better get used to this. You're going to be like this for a long time. And it was still just kind of sinking in what I was dealing with, and that this could be 6 months or a year before I can even really walk on my own normally again. And so she said that, and it kind of got me back into the bed focusing on that. I was pretty demotivated and really starting to let this bad news sink in for what it was. And then later that day, strangely enough, I had to pee again. So I buzzed the buzzer, and a different nurse came through the door. And if you've ever been in the hospital, there can be a real spectrum of nurses that walk through the door from 1 minute to the next. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But this one had a whole different energy, and we went through the same process and ended up on the stool having a break in the middle of the room again. Except she said to me, "Don't you worry about it, sweetheart. We're going to get you back on your feet in no time." And everything about how that made me feel was different and more positive. And, time is relative. Whether it was a year or whether it was no time at all, it was very much a relative thing. And even though the earlier nurse was, trying to warn me and prepare me for the potential reality that I was going to face, it didn't serve me very well. Whereas the second comment, "Don't you worry about it, we're going to get you back on your feet in no time," it felt like I had a part to play in that. It made me literally think, that's right, we can do something about this.
Brilliant.
And so I went back to bed and felt entirely different. And I started to look up on the internet, how can I control my mood? Because I wanted to feel the way this nurse made me feel more of the time.
Right.
I'm an athlete. I know what it feels like when you're excited about a game.
Right.
And you're visualizing success, right? All the tricks that we learn with sports psychology.
Right.
You're ready to forget the mistake you just made and quickly make the adaptations to the game style that you have to have from one shift to the next. You can't live in the past. You got to live in the future.
Yes.
You got to keep your head up, and that's how it made me feel. So what I found on the internet was this concept of a gratitude journal, and it seems too simple to be true or to have the impact that it does, but literally it just suggests keeping track of what you're grateful for on a regular basis, anywhere from daily to weekly.
Yes.
So I started to do that. And, I was grateful for little things like salt and pepper because the food wasn't very good. And I joke, I said I was grateful for banana pudding until about the third week. And then I was much less grateful for banana pudding after eating it every day. But like the fact that I was being grateful for the food, the kitchen actually heard this from the gentleman who was delivering the food every day. And I would say thank you and tell them that I'm really grateful. And they started to send me more of the food that I liked.
Oh,
and so,
interesting.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And then it was in the States, so we were dealing with American health insurance versus Canadian, where, you don't get a bill when you go to the hospital.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so the hospital insurance limited how much access I got to things like occupational therapy and physical therapy.
Right.
And so I would get 5 hours a week, 1 hour a day, Monday through Friday, and nothing on the weekends. But because of the attitude that I took, and because I was, focusing on being positive, and I was using gratitude to stay positive, that started to have a positive impact on the people that I interacted with. And so they started to come after work and give me another half an hour, on their own time.
Wow.
And then, in the third week, they started to come in on their weekends to give me an hour. So I'd get one or the other on a Saturday or a Sunday. And, donating their time because we were in this together. We were going to get me back on my feet in no time.
Right.
And so it started to have this compounded effect. And about 6 weeks later, I walked out of the hospital. And I was still on canes, the kind of arm crutches.
Right.
And I still wasn't walking perfectly, and I couldn't do a lot. But I was out of the hospital in time to go back in for the birth of our second baby. And they were pretty certain I wasn't going to. Like, they were already talking about setting up the room so that Jenny, my wife, and the baby would be in the same room with me because we were all going to be in the hospital together.
Right.
And that's how sure they were that I wasn't getting out early. And I walked out just a few days in advance and able to come back in, on my own volition and when the baby was born.
It's beautiful.
Crazy,
wow.
Right? Yeah.
That is incredible. Yeah, I can feel it. You can feel it, right? I'm listening to you.
It's true,
the
right?
Crescendo.
Like, those things matter, but they're hard to quantify per se.
Yeah.
But so we came back to Canada. We had a huge medical bill. It ended up being hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
And it was 2009, so just after the economy crashed, and I couldn't work. I lost about $130,000 in salary.
Wow.
And my disability covered $30,000 of it. So we moved back to Canada to be nearer to our families because we became very grateful for families and the support that they provide. Right. And we became grateful for OHIP, Ontario Health Insurance, the government chipping in to pay your medical bills.
Yeah.
But I wanted to study this because so many people commented on how much my mood had a part to play in this. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't go back to my lacrosse, as you had mentioned, and I couldn't go back to my job yet because it still recurs every once in a while.
Right.
And what I found was, so I went back to school at Laurier here in Kitchener-Waterloo, and I was studying psychology. And what I found was there's a name for this. It's called post-traumatic growth. And we're all pretty familiar with what post-traumatic stress disorder is.
Right.
To different degrees, but there is something that's at the other end of the scale called post-traumatic growth. And typically the hallmark of that is that, a year after you've had a very traumatic event, if you wouldn't go back in time and change that event because you feel like you've developed so much as a result of it, you're experiencing post-traumatic growth. So because of the challenge that you're facing, you're learning new things. You're becoming better. And so you can become grateful for the challenge in an odd way.
Wow.
Where with post-traumatic stress, you would definitely go back and erase those events if you could, because you assume you would erase all the stress that came out of them as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we researched and we found all this really great information, and there's this set of psychological traits that are really common amongst people who experience post-traumatic growth. And there's things like hope and optimism and empathy and mindfulness and resilience, obviously. And these are what we consider now to be psychological skills. So you can improve all of those things. You can practice gratitude. You can practice empathy. And by doing that, you can improve what we call your fluency, your psychological fluency in those traits, where they become a more ever-present part of your life.
Right.
And that's pretty awesome.
I'll say.
It's not something that you were written a prescription for when you were born and you were stuck a certain way.
Yeah, right.
You were born a certain way.
Yeah.
And you can get better and you can change things and you can practice these things. And if you practice them enough, they change the way you are and how successful you are in the future.
Incredible. Well, even that nugget right there, Jim, is worth the show, because
it's unbelievable.
I know that there's members of the audience that are probably thinking, "Oh, yeah, but my case is I'm really derelict and I'm really down and out," right? Yeah.
Yep.
You're telling
the reasons why that can't be them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what the difference between optimism and pessimism is ultimately is that pessimism is, what can't I do because of what I don't have or what I'm missing?
All right.
And you get focused on what you can't do or what couldn't get done. Whereas optimism is, what can we do with what we have available?
Well, this obviously, this is, I can see the stepping stone now. I mean, reality is you've now gone back to university. You've gained some additional knowledge about what the hell it was you just went through. And how you could fix yourself, and obviously the next move is like, how can I flip this around and share it with somebody else. And I'm guessing
how
that's
quickly
what
can we
the
get this to other
Smile
people?
Epidemic that you created, right? Is
Yeah,
that how it
that was
came
exactly
about?
it. Yeah, that was it. So my gratitude journal, at some point, I was a stay-at-home dad with the second baby while the first one went to school, and I was taking university part-time and studying psychology, and there was a moment where I was pretty down in the dumps again. So it was February or late January, and there was 6 feet of snow outside, and I was walking on a cane and not very well. And, I had neuropsychology exams coming up. So I was literally sitting in my office studying and feeling pretty sorry for myself, kind of forgetting my own lessons, because that's what we do sometimes, right?
Yeah.
You don't get things and keep them forever. You get a couple of refreshers along the way that remind you how important they are. Right. So, I'm sitting in my room, feeling sorry for myself, and all of a sudden I hear the kids splashing around the bathtub. And instead of doing a private gratitude post in my journal, I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I wrote on the paper, "Hearing the kids in the bathtub makes me smile today." And I took a picture of myself holding it up in front of my face, and I put it on Facebook. And, it's just super simple.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I had strangers sending me pictures like that back to me. One guy said, "No guts, no glory." And he was great. His story was that he was really trying to work hard at changing his body, at losing a bunch of weight and getting in shape.
Right.
And that it was hard work, but it was worth it. And he was grateful for the chance to work on it. And another young girl sent a note that said, "Kissing my boyfriend." And, over the next few months, we had thousands of these pictures come to us. Some of them really simple, like beer and wine and bacon, right?
Yeah.
And other really profound ones. We had one woman one day who sent one in and said, "No more cancer."
Wow. There's a big win. Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we made it into a thing. We called it the Smile Epidemic, because what we thought was we were sharing what we were happy for, what we were grateful for, and it seemed to have this contagious effect. So we called it the Smile Epidemic. Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive. And it was across Canada, was it? Is it or
yeah,
across
well,
the world?
it actually went over to over 100 countries. We had submissions from over 100 countries. It was just a blog. And, we had people who traveled together for 2 weeks every year, and they used it as their way to communicate for the other 50 weeks of the year, where they just sent each other pictures about what they were grateful for. We had people that took it and used it. So what we did is we had a piece of paper with a smile on it, and you wrote what was making you smile, and you held it up in front of your face, and you took a picture.
Yeah.
Well, we had people who were using it at funerals, where they were writing notes about their positive memories about the person who had passed on, and they were putting it in a jar so that the family could pull those out in the future and read them when they needed a boost.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Like really impactful. So then we made it into an app. We thought we needed to do something more with it. And we made it into an app that allowed you to do it digitally, and we basically created this small-scale social network that was all focused on gratitude and positivity.
Incredible.
And we did the 30 days of happiness, because what it takes, as you know, when there's something you want to do, it's not as easy as just starting to do it. You have to build that thing into your habit, build a practice of it.
Yeah.
So we were having people do this once a day for as many as 30 days. And they were building the practice of being more grateful. And they were literally developing this psychological fitness, the skill of gratitude. And it was pretty awesome. It was crazy. It wasn't an obvious business, but it was a thing. It was there was something there.
There's something there. Did you think at any given time that you try to monetize this on this domain that you built, or was that even in your?
Was the opposite.
Was it in your mind? It was the opposite.
It was for me. It was the opposite. So there was other people who were like, "Hey, you can monetize this."
Yeah.
And it felt to me like it would bastardize it, to advertise to people in this safe place where they're sharing what makes them happy. And at one point, there was like 4,700 posts, not a single negative comment, no bullying.
Right.
No making, like there was like a mid-20-year-old guy who literally had his teddy bear still from when he was a little kid. And he posted that, and everybody said, that's awesome. There was no bullying.
Yeah.
There was no negativity.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to keep it like that. And I actually, when we were first setting it up as an organization, as a business, we were going to use it as a nonprofit.
Okay.
But then it felt like, then we started to look at how you fundraise as a nonprofit, typically. And we were taking money away from cancer projects, the Multiple Sclerosis Society. Those are the kind of grants that we were competing with.
Right.
It didn't feel great taking money away from those things either, because that was their only way to generate revenue.
Correct.
So I got talked into creating it as a for-profit business, and we didn't have a monetization model, but we figured it out that we would figure it out as we went.
Wow.
And so this is when the real journey starts. The business side of this journey starts. It gets pretty interesting.
Yeah. Plasticity Labs comes to the forefront, right?
Yeah, so we got a grant, and we got a small investment, and we had about $40,000. And I don't know if you've ever heard of South by Southwest, the big music festival down in Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal down there.
It is a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, my wife is a pretty rock star public relations person. About 15 years, and she's about building brands.
I'd have to agree with you on that, just having interacted with her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So she said, she came in one day and she said, great news. We just got accepted to speak at South by Southwest. And she had pitched us to do a talk on the ROI of happiness.
Oh, boy.
And so we kind of gathered up all of our gold shekels, and we rented an RV, and we drove our small team down there.
Right.
And we bought a booth, and we took out a 20 by 10 booth in the South by Southwest marketplace.
Incredible.
Yeah, the interactive marketplace. And we had Shaquille O'Neal come by the booth. I just shared
really
today on Twitter, and do a smile with us. But what we also had was we built this mascot, and I wore it. It was a big fuzzy camera with a smile on it. And everybody wanted to take their picture with it. So it was all over Twitter. We actually were trending. We were the top 2 trending subjects at South by Southwest in the first week.
Yeah. Wow.
And, but then we also had, we had Coca-Cola come into the booth, and we had Purina come in the booth, and we had Walt Disney come in the booth. And they said, we want this in our workplaces for our employees.
Wow.
Yeah, we came back, and we were so excited, but we didn't know what the hell we were going to do yet.
Yeah.
But we knew that there was a real demand at the biggest scale to have this in the workplace. And then we set ourselves to the task of figuring out how to do that and what that looked like.
Wow. Impressive.
Yeah.
You found a need. Then actually they came and told you. I mean, the large client came and told you.
Yeah.
Wow.
They actually said, we've already got budget for this kind of thing. We're spending money trying to do this kind of thing, to invest in our employees.
Yeah.
And they already had the hypothesis that happier employees equaled happier customers.
Right.
That net promoter score would improve if your frontline employees were happier. And that makes sense to all of us, right?
Yeah. Now, I would imagine that, it's just like, what I was I had John on the show, John Six from Fibernetics, and I think he's a client of yours, actually.
He is, and an investor now.
And he did an entire cultural change with his company that has some incredible upswings. But I still think that in the audience there's people that are still going to view this effort, and I mean, I hate to use these terms, but silly, not aligned with their traditional expectations or their conditioned work behavior. This what's culture all of it. I mean, what do you have to say to the audience members that are still at this stage of the game doubting the validity of an effort like this?
Yeah, well, I used to spend a lot of time trying to convince them of it. And now I say, just sit back and watch, because we're watching it work so well. And there's so many. I think the key word, what you said there was, more traditional thinking. And there's an unbelievable part of the population who are really bucking the traditional ways of business, of doing business.
Right.
Bringing forward the best parts, but willing to experiment to find out what could be better. Not just accepting the status quo approach to this. And, even the title, human resources, basically speaks to the fact that we treat our people oftentimes as assets, as numbers. They're a resource that's available to us, and they happen to be human.
Right. I hate that term, head count. It
we
just
kind of think of it as like it's the counting of people.
Yeah.
And so what we find now is tons and tons of companies where they don't have a chief human resources officer. They have a chief of people and culture.
Right.
And they know that it's people that drive their business, and that how those people feel, whether they feel respected and valuable, whether they feel like they have opportunities for growth and personal development, and whether they feel like they're in alignment with the mission and the values of the organization, that stuff matters. And what we're able to do is actually prove that, right? So we go in and we make those changes with our technology, and we'll compare the departments that have the greatest change and how that actually shows up in performance indicators like sales and customer service scores.
Right.
And so that leaders can go back to their board of directors or their senior executive teams with data and reports that show, look, when we make these investments in our people, this is the output. We quantify happiness in the workplace now.
Right.
So I don't have to spend as much time now convincing those the disbelievers, because our clients do it for us now, which is really great. Right? They kind of shout from the rooftops.
Yes.
You need to care about the happiness of your people, and whether you're doing it for purely the right reason that it's a good thing to do, or because you care about driving your business and you've got shareholders to keep happy, both of those reasons are fine.
Yeah.
And what we care about is that we're trying to facilitate the happiness of the individual employees, and we don't have to charge them to do it. We work with the organizations because it's in their financial best interest to make that investment. So we accomplish our mission statement, and we do it without having to charge people to improve their happiness.
Yeah. Now you're putting something into play, obviously, that's might be considered an extra, or probably in some cases a distraction from the day-to-day work. When you talk about your mobile app and the fact that you've got a system now that people are going to communicate with through, much like they do with Facebook or something like that. I mean,
it's a social platform.
I mean, there are probably people who are still, regardless of how great the outcome is, you're saying like, but what about performance? And how do I get people to just behave themselves at work and not be wasting their time on this app?
Well, I haven't met too many people who can log 8 consistent hours of perfect performance. We have a tendency to ebb and flow a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
And what our statistics show is that the average active user logs into our platform multiple times a day, and they average between 3 minutes and 44 seconds and 5 minutes and 10 seconds a day in total.
Okay.
So that's not very much time.
No.
But in that amount of time, we're able to measure how happy they are on a daily basis. And they can go in and learn about another employee. They can see what's happening in a different office. They can see where the CEO's off traveling. We had one CEO post a picture of a belly dancing event that he was at in Qatar. So it really connects people and they're learning. So instead of going to Facebook, where that time and value just goes out into the ether, they're spending 3 to 5 minutes a day inside of the workplace environment, but getting a bit of a social fix and learning about what's making business better, sharing best practices, finding out what customers are saying, and we're able to measure and help them to improve their happiness in those 3 to 5 minutes a day. Yeah.
A light just went off in my head as I listened to you truly, clearly explain that, because there's the argument that there are going to be people in offices wasting their time on Facebook and Twitter anyway.
Yep.
Right? You're actually controlling it. You're keeping it in-house, and you're developing some kind of advocacy amongst each other too, right?
That's right. Yeah. So we're improving the internal, the mood, and we're capturing that social energy and using it to amplify the culture.
Wow.
As
All
opposed
makes sense to me.
Spending time looking at pictures of their family or their friends.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
But that they can learn. There's a lot you can learn by sharing things with employees. And we have a ton of people who, are a little bit more introverted and aren't as open to share.
Of course.
But we know about 35% of the people who come on, they spend those 3 minutes and they look around and they don't necessarily leave a trail of breadcrumbs. They don't comment and they don't interact. But you know how much they're able to learn just by observing?
Yes.
And, you might see somebody sharing a picture of, the gardening team or the gardening club or, a couple of people that have started to go walking. We had two people who learned that they were in different departments but in the same building. And they learned that they both really love sushi. And they go out for sushi once a month now. And they're building a real relationship.
Right. And obviously that relationship and the rapport that gets built, it transcends to their work environment and just, multiplies from there, right?
Well, yeah, if you think too, we all have tough patches at work.
Yeah.
And all the research that we've done and the research that we've studied shows us that during those tough patches, the people who have real solid friendships at work, they get through those tough patches. They come out of them faster. They return to levels of high performance faster. They're more resilient to downswings in the economy. And that developing real friendships matter. And as you know, so many more people are working from home now and working remote.
Yes.
And so we're diluting the value of those relationships because there's less face-to-face.
Yes.
And there's less opportunity to learn about each other. There's less offhand conversations by the coffee machine.
No, that's true. That's
true.
So
we're able to recreate those and connect people who are sometimes really far away, even in different languages, and help them build relationships further across the organization and across time and space through this digital channel. And while we've got them there, we teach them little tricks about how to be happier, how to use empathy in their communications, and how to be resilient and optimistic.
Yeah. Well, I took the time, actually, to read one of your white papers. It caught my eye on your website. And the one that really caught my eye was gratitude at work and its impact on job satisfaction. And I'll tell you, that first number blew me away in the statement. Only 30% of people actually express thanks to a coworker. Like, are you kidding? 30%? That's nothing.
Right. And it matters.
Yeah.
To know that somebody's grateful for the work that you do, to know that somebody's grateful. We do these things called smile bombs once in a while.
Right.
And that's a bunch of people focusing their gratitude on somebody who might not normally feel it. We did it at Laurier University on one of the caretakers.
Okay.
Where all the students wrote all the things that they noticed that caretaker does in the building, but probably have never told them before. The bathroom's being cleaned, the floor's always being polished.
Right. And
so you just bathe this person in the understanding that their work matters to people. If you find me one person that won't take more value out of the work that they do when they know that matters to other people.
I think we all know, just even interacting with each other, that when somebody says thank you to you, you kind of feel, that was kind of neat. I felt,
that's right.
I already felt my level of confidence just went up.
Yeah, like people notice.
Yeah.
And so that's that contagious effect.
Yeah.
And, we kind of joke around that you don't have to stimulate bitching and moaning. And there's always stuff to complain about, right?
Absolutely.
But, it doesn't hurt to create a forum and to stimulate talking about the positives. There's this great activity that you can do. It's a professional development activity. It's called positive gossiping. And you have a group of 3 people. Right. And the 2 people talk about the third person as if they weren't there, but they only say all the good things that they think about that person.
Oh, wow.
It's super fun to do because it's almost awkward.
Oh, I'll say.
and people really get into it, and you hear the hooting and the hollering and the laughing and stuff that they've never heard that these people think, are great about them, and they get to hear it. And it just, it's just incredible for building relationships and meaning.
Yeah.
It's not fluffy.
Right.
It's about adding meaning and value to people's experience of work.
This is brilliant. Jim, what's your personal and professional mission in life? I mean, given all this, I'm thinking that a lot of things have gone through your head right now. I'm thinking like, he must have some design where he wants to go with this.
Yeah. Well, when I was a little boy, I said that I wanted to win the Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh.
And as an adult now, I've kind of refined that, where I would like to leave an impact on humanity that's worthy of winning a Nobel Peace Prize. And so our mission statement as a company is to help 1 billion people to live a happier life. And
wow.
it's a pretty big stroke to accomplish.
That's huge. Yeah.
And we picked that number on purpose. It forces us outside of North America.
Yeah.
It forces us to work across cultures and to work the whole gamut of age ranges. So we have a project, we're developing a nonprofit arm. It's called the Hero Generation. We call them the workplace hero traits. That's the hope, efficacy, resilience, optimism. But we think it would be great if kids showed up to their jobs with those skills instead of just math and English and science, that we teach them emotional intelligence and we teach them to be empathetic and to be optimistic at an early age. The kids who show up to university with the highest levels of these hero traits not only are the most likely to graduate with the highest marks, they're also the least likely to experience mental health issues while they're in university.
Right.
So we're developing a alternative version of our technology platform for kids to be delivered in the school system that will train and reinforce social and emotional intelligence, and then track their performance and help them to be happier children.
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty big goal.
Yeah, I'll say, but I'm sure that there's parents and grandparents like myself out there in the audience who are, that brings a nice smile to them. I'm sure of it.
Well, and it works. We did a research study. So one of the big things with us is everything is evidence-based. It's not just what we think, it's what we know.
Right.
So we have a team of 7 PhDs, and we're growing our research team. And we spend 20% of our top line, minimum of 20%. It's actually right in our corporate documents, has to be on research.
Right.
And we did a 21-day gratitude intervention with school-age children in 4th, 5th, and 7th grade in a Catholic school board. And in 21 days, sometime across the last 6 weeks of the school year, we increased every measured metric of performance in every classroom, 100% of classrooms.
Wow.
The impact on children is unbelievable, because essentially what we do when we prime people to be happier is we turn down the likelihood of that fight or flight response activating, where you don't notice stresses, you don't perceive stresses as negative stresses. Right. You're more likely to perceive them as positive stresses. Because when our brain switches into that fight or flight response mode, we literally pull about 30% of the bandwidth of our prefrontal cortex offline. So you literally reduce the capacity of your brain to reach its potential.
Jim, you sound like a scientist. You've obviously taken in every iota that could possibly be on information about this subject matter.
Yeah,
incredible.
This is a big thing, and we wouldn't put ourselves as far into it if we didn't know that it's real and that it can happen. Yeah. And it's the research that lets you sleep well at night.
Wow.
It's just a matter of getting that into the product and out to people who can benefit from it.
That's so brilliant. And obviously, is the run continuing for you? I mean, you've still got interested large enterprise companies that are still after you to come and talk to them, and help them fit up.
The growth is crazy, and we've got whole cities now as customers.
Right.
We've got credit unions. We've got our first real multinational apparel brand. and we've started to work with them doing some research, and we'll be rolling out the product in the new year. But
Fantastic.
They have over 11,000 employees.
Wow.
So our business model is that we charge $5 per employee per month, and it's a recurring revenue model where every month they pay for a subscription that's about the cost of a latte, and then we provide them a ton of reporting, and we're able to really help them solve problems that they didn't know happen, that exist. We were able to show a customer that an external economic event that was happening in one of the geographic regions, fairly distant to where their home base was, that these people's happiness was nosediving. And we were able to figure out why in the course of 3 weeks and tell them. And, so then it's, what can we do? Well, we put them on a plane. We put the CEO and the director of HR on a plane, and they went out. And they said, something's up here, and we care to find out, because if we can help it, we want to help.
Right.
So we can really help companies see into a blind spot about people that they might not be able to see. Yes. And it's not that they don't want to do things; it's that they don't know, and they can't do anything with what they don't know.
It's qualified data that the employer themselves are actually entering or processing through the system, right?
Yeah. So it's all. So we do both quantitative and qualitative data, and then there's behavioral data and activity. How many people are connected to who are the thought leaders in an organization. So who's best suited to deliver messages, instead of it coming from management all the time. And so in a company of about 180 people, in 10 months, they answered 26,000 questions optionally.
Wow.
That's incredible. A lot of data.
Yeah, that's huge.
So we even know, and it's all anonymized to the company. They only learn about groups and departments. They can never learn about individuals. Right. But we know, for example, we're dealing with one company right now. We know how their French-speaking employees feel significantly different than their English-speaking employees.
Yes.
And we're working with them on communication strategies now to make their French-speaking employees feel equally as valued as their English-speaking employees.
See, that would have been guesswork previously, right?
That's right. And it would be hard to get the budget.
Yeah.
To go in and say, we think this is happening and we'd like some budget to spend. But when you've got quantified data, from 670 employees, and this is what the data says very clearly, it's very easy to go and get the budget that you need to attend to that issue.
Well, I'm thinking of it as it could be assessed as part and parcel of a benefits program, for me. I mean, it's because it is to the benefit of the employee, on an individual basis, and then it bubbles up from there on. So, I mean, it would make sense. Are you talking to the HR side of the business, or are you actually talking to the business?
We talked often, so it's about 50-50. We come in through HR. But the other place that we found real impact is with the very top, presidents and CEOs.
Yeah.
And predominantly, you don't make it to the age of 30 or 40 where you haven't had some challenges in your own life.
That's true.
Lost someone to cancer, lost a parent.
Yeah.
Dealt with the sickness of yourself or a child.
Right.
And got through that. And one of the things when you get through something really difficult is you would love to help other people get through things or to get the learning from those challenges without having to experience the events themselves. And so we've had a really high resonance with these leaders who just care about the people, and they know the business case, and the fact that we can prove the business case, gives them a lot of weight in suggesting that we're going to do this. We're going to act on this feeling that we have, where we care about people, and it's a differentiator in who you attract to your organization.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So we're doing a campaign where
I think
we're going to
just
roll
like
out marketing that says, here's 50 companies in your neighborhood
right.
who invest in the happiness of their employees. And what's going to happen to their HR departments? They're going to get lit up with high quality people.
Right. Well, I think John Sticks spoke to that. It's like they never really need to go and advertise anymore because that people want to line up because they want to work in a happy place. They want to work.
Yeah,
in
the pile is deep and it's more qualified than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Actually, for the first time, we had an employee who left one company and came to another company that's using Plasticity, saying, "I'm only taking interviews from companies that are using Plasticity."
Now that's discriminatory.
Yeah, that's right.
In a new way.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah,
in a really good way. Yeah. Jim, I just caught the clock, and I'm telling you, I had a fear of this as we got going because I thought, oh my Lord, this is such an amazing topic. Your story's magnificent. I love how it started. I love how it's come 360 degrees back to the same old feeling of gratitude.
Yeah.
That
it's our
seems
whole life
to be
every
that
day.
is the burning platform, right?
Yeah.
That nurse that turned around to you and said, "Oh no, we're going to have you out of here in no time." I mean, there's the nugget for me. I love that. I
remember looking at her and saying, "Let's do that.
Let's do that. I'm
Let's
in, right?
That.
As John
Let's
Sticks would say, I'm in."
No time. Yeah.
Listen, Jim, before we go, take a minute, if you will, and tell the audience where they can get a hold of you, where they can get a hold of your people, where they can find you, etc., your call numbers, and before we call it a day.
Yeah, so the website's super straightforward. It's Plasticity Labs. That's PLASTICITY, and labs, LABS.com. And you can find us on Twitter, the same, at Plasticity, and you can find me, my Twitter handle is the Smile CEO. And you can give us a call. You can call my line directly if you like. It's 226-929-6677. If you're interested in talking about happiness, I answer the phone to take that call. And we would love to hear from companies and individuals. We're going to be releasing a new version of the platform again under the Smile Epidemic name, where people outside of organizations can benefit from all of these things without having to pay anything. It's entirely free. But we're trying to improve the happiness of 1 billion people, so we're going to need all the help we can get, and we really appreciate everybody's help.
That is an amazing feat to undertake, but I got a sense about you and the way you've tackled this and the way things are growing that you're going to do it. That's for sure.
We're going to do it. That's right.
Yes.
Not a doubt in my mind.
Jim, thanks very much again, and look forward to catching up with you again soon. All the best.
Thanks so much for having me. Cheers.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Journey to Success Radio. If you or anyone you know would like to be interviewed for the show, email Tom at tom2tall.com for details.